At this point, I think it's pretty much generally accepted that the fastest, most efficient way to make small volume, high complexity parts is with a 5-axis machine. Unfortunately, 5-axis machines are really expensive. But what if I told you I have a way of adding 5-axis-ish capabilities to any mill for under about $2,000? Let me show you. These two things here are Erowa 0-point bases, or specifically off-brand Erowa 0-point bases. And if I just flip this switch here, I can take my fixture, stick it in there, flip the switch again, and it is locked in place. But the beauty of this system is it indexes very, very precisely in 90-degree increments. So I did 180 there. I can pull it off, do 90. And because I have one here horizontal and one vertical, I can take this and put it here. So I have 4 different stations there, one different one here. That gives me 5-sided machining. So while this definitely isn't as good as full 5-axis machining, or even 4+1, or even 3+2, it still lets you get to 5 sides of your part without ever needing to take it out of the fixture. But we can also use this to swap out a traditional vise for a soft draw vise. And again, because this locates super repeatably, we can switch vices without needing to change work coordinate systems or probe anything in again. So now we can pretty quickly swap between doing all 6 sides of our part without needing to shovel out $100,000 for a 5-axis machine. I spent a total of, I think, under $800 for both of these bases. I did get them used, and they were import units, not brand name Erowa units, but you can buy these new imported for about $1,200. You can also get them manually driven instead of pneumatically if you'd prefer that. I've heard those ones are a little bit more rigid. I used this exact setup on a Subtract manufacturing job the other day, and while I unfortunately can't show you those parts, I'm going to show you the exact workflow I used with the sanitized version of the part. If you stick around for the whole thing, I bet you'll find some useful tips and tricks. So step 1 of the saw, I have this little jig. This was just a quick 3D printed jig. I can slide it over the end of the bar there, push it against the blade, pull off the jig, and tighten down the wheel. And now it's ready to cut at the correct length. So cycle start, open that, and it'll just cut in a second here. For these parts, I'm doing them in this little collet holder. This is an ER32 collet. And I 3D printed another one of these little jigs. So you just kind of push it on there and then push it down and then tighten this collet. And that makes sure we have the right amount of stick out to cut these parts. I've just been using this little thing from Martin Precision Tools to tighten the collets here. Technically, this is a torque wrench adapter and you should use it with a torque wrench. But my machining forces on this are so low that just tightening it by hand using this thing as a wrench, while not what it's for, has been working just fine. And also, I've just been holding this thing in soft jaws in my bench vise just because I don't have any sort of base or good way of holding this to torque it down. But I found this to be a pretty convenient, fast method. Now that it's done though, we can take it over to the machine, and I'm going to flip that switch. And I always load it with the words on this chuck facing up. I probably don't need to do that, but a little extra consistency has never hurt anything. All right, let's try this out. So this operation is now done. We have our completed part there. Well, we have our completed operation there. The part's not done yet. And you can see my control is telling me Op 1 complete, rotate to Op 2. Now when I did my production of these parts, I had every program strung together, and so I would just need to hit cycle start and it would run the next operation. But for demonstration purposes, I still have it broken out into separate programs. Anyway, we can go ahead and flip my switch. That loosens this. I can do my 180, put it back in there, close the switch, and now it's locked down for our next operation. So with that done, again, it says move to Op 3. So all I have to do is flip this switch and put this in the Op 3 position. Found this base to be a little bit sticky. I guess this is what you get for buying an import base used specifically. But I found if I flip the switch on and off a couple times, it'll get unstuck eventually. So it's on there now. I put the logo on this ER chuck facing towards me. Again, I don't think I actually need to do that, but for consistency purposes, it doesn't hurt. If we look at our part, so far so good. There's some burrs there, obviously. Maybe a little bit of streaking because the end mill is a little bit worn out. But it is chatter-free, despite having a fair amount of stick out, both from the part from the fixture and then also the fixture from the pallet base, and then also the pallet base from the table. It's not the stiffest kinematic chain in the world, but it's been working. Anyway, now we need to run this Op 3 with this end of the part vertical. So that's the first 3 ops, and that's everything we can do without moving the part. You can see we have our kind of cross shape there. We deburred the top, we didn't deburr the edges, and that's because this gets tumbled. Now check this out. So I'm gonna loosen the part, and you see how I have all that extra material? That's because this is actually gonna be 2 parts. And I can put it back in here, set the stick out length, tighten it down, use my not a torque wrench. Now I can put it back in the machine, lock it down, and run another one. I won't make you guys watch the same thing twice though. Okay, that second side is done, and we can pull this out now. And now I can pull out the part. So, how do we do our last op here, our 4th op, with the parts still tied together? Well, obviously we don't, and we need to separate them. That is where this handy dandy thing comes in. This is a little sawing jig where I can push the part down in here and then tighten these 2 screws. Now on my little portaband, I can use this as a jig to hold it and cut my part in half. Now it's designed so that there's a dead stop inside here. You can't see it because it's inside the plastic, but there's a stop for the other end of this. And I know if I cut it within an 1/8 inch of the end of this on my bandsaw, it will clean up properly when I put it back in the mill for the last operation. So all I have to do is make sure that the blade is kind of close to the jig, but without cutting the jig. This gives us one part that's already cut off. Then if we take the same Allen wrench that we used to tighten those screws, we can just shove it up and then pop it straight out. And so now we have 2 parts. I was really close to the side on that one, so one's a little bit shorter, the other one's a little bit longer. But don't worry, we have million allowances for those. For the last operation, our soft jaws go back in. In this case, I just make sure that the hex is facing towards me so I can open and close it. Load the part and torque down. This is just going to, I think, 20 foot-pounds. It's a pretty light clamp. And then it's just time to load the last program and let her run. That was supposed to take more passes. When I changed the part to not look like my customer's part so I could share this video, I apparently made that hole a little bit too big and the end mill was leaving a post as it was boring down. I'm gonna give it a roughing pass this time so it doesn't leave a post and break the tool. There we go, no post left. And that's the whole part. We can take it out with the ratchet. And all 6 sides of the part have been machined. It does need to be deburred. Like I said, it would normally go in the tumbler after this. But this has been a super good workflow for making these parts. I would certainly prefer to have a 5-axis machine. I would definitely even prefer having a 4-axis machine. But right now I don't. And this was super cheap and super cost effective. And for the kinds of parts that I make, it works really well. If you make big stuff, this probably isn't the best workflow for you. If you do production work, also probably not a great workflow. But for small prototyping, this has been fantastic. I'm going to put links to all the pieces of my setup in the description below. For the Erowa work holding stuff, I do not have any sort of affiliation with those companies at all. And in fact, I did not even buy my setup from them. I bought them used. So I am not specifically endorsing any of these manufacturers. You're probably better off going to Erowa proper, but the knockoff stuff is a whole lot cheaper. The Amazon links are affiliate links, however. I've started taking 100% of my work through subtractmanufacturing.com. Subtract is a small collective of machine shops that are working together to do more than any one shop can do on our own. The Subtract model has turned out to be a really efficient way for us to make parts because each of the shops can focus on what they're good at. If a customer comes to us with an order that has a mix of both small parts and large parts, I can take the small parts, and then one of our shops whose core competency is the large parts, they can take those. And by splitting the job to 2 different shops, we can lower lead times because one person isn't doing everything, and we're only focusing on what we're good at. Which, by the way, also makes us fairly cost competitive because nobody's working outside of their niche. Anyway, if you need good parts, fast, check out subtractmanufacturing.com, and we'll get you taken care of. Anyway, thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.